on behalf of the NSS unit of Advocate Bara Sahib Apte College of Law, welcome you all. As we all know, today is the International Democracy Day. To celebrate the significance of this day, we, the students of NSS unit of Advocate Bara Sahib Apte College of Law, has organized this webinar. I would like to welcome our principal, Vaishali Guru Madam, our program officer, Vishal Shinde sir, and to share his valuable insights and knowledge. Today we have with us our guest speaker, Mr. Chaitanya Prabhu. Mr. Chaitanya Prabhu is the founder of Mark Your Presence organization. He is also the youngest person to have registered 10,000 voters at a mere age of 21. Mr. Chaitanya Prabhu has been working on the registration and voters education since the year 2018 and has successfully helped in the general elections of 2019, the assembly elections in Maharashtra, and the assembly elections in Delhi. He wishes and dreams to build a democracy with educated voters. Chaitanya Prabhu is also a national level athlete. He represents Maharashtra in the tracks and field competitions. I can also proudly say that Mr. Chaitanya Prabhu is a student of Advocate Bara Sahib Apte College of Law. We are glad to have you here with us today, sir. We welcome you. I would now request Apeksha to introduce the audience. Over to you, Apeksha.
You're not audible, Apeksha. Apeksha, you're not audible. No.
Hello, am
Yes,
I audible now?
Yes. Continue.
Sorry, sir. Sorry, everyone. Good afternoon to one and all. I, Apeksha Ashok Jadhav, student of Advocate Bara Sahib Apte College of Law, studying in 4th year BLS LLB, is here to give a brief introduction of today's topic of discussion. The International Day of Democracy provides an opportunity to view the state of democracy in the world. It is observed on 15th of September every year. Democracy is as much as a process as a goal, and it can be achieved only with the full participation and support of international community, national governing bodies, civil society, and individuals can the ideal of democracy be made into reality to be enjoyed by everyone everywhere. The values of freedom, respect of human rights, and the principle of holding periodic and genuine elections by universal suffrage are the essentials of democracy. These values are embodied in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and further developed in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. In 2007, the United Nations General Assembly resolved to observe 15th September as International Day of Democracy with the purpose of promoting and upholding the principles of democracy and invited all the member states and organizations to commemorate this day in an appropriate manner that contributes to raising public awareness. The UN's goal is to promote government role in maintaining the open democracy among all the member nations of UN Charter. When we think of democracy, we think about its origin from Athens and Rome. For the countries and the world, it has taken a lot of efforts, time, and life. And this day is to cherish, remember, and celebrate the sacrifice of all the people who have fight all their life and struggle to get an open democracy for their respective states. Democracy is a revolution that no matter what the force is, when people come together, they unite, they form democracy, and with this united force, they fight any form of monarchy. And why we have united and why we have International Day of Democracy is because this day gives power to people. It allows change. It is based on equality, the fundamental aspect of democracy. It gives equal rights. That is why we are able to sustain and live with dignity. Thank you. Over to you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Apeksha. I would now request our principal ma'am to address the audience and share her valuable insights.
Thank you, Vanessa. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am.
I wish all the NSSites today on the occasion of International Democracy Day. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome Advocate Priyanka Rani Patil, Madam. I see that she is also here with us online. Welcome, Madam. Advocate Priyanka Rani Patil, Madam, is also our visiting professor, and I'm glad that she has been able to join us today. From what Apeksha earlier said, is we should value the democracy that we are living in. We should be aware of our rights. The very fact that we are living in a democratic country today is by virtue of all the struggle that has been undergone by the past centuries, generations, like the Romans and the Greek. And it is imperative that you all read the Greco-Roman laws, how they have evolved and how it took so long for us to obtain democracy. 2007 was just recent, but if you read the history of maybe 13th century, 12th century, and the evolution of the UDHR, you will understand why we should value democracy, because democracy is something which has given us the freedom of speech, the freedom to elect our representatives, the freedom to use the media for whatever you want to express. So what is the important aspect of democracy as on today in these situations, especially like the COVID-19 situation, is what I feel is it is the value that we have and which is to be utilized in the right manner. It is extremely important that with every freedom, you have certain responsibility, and it is being aware of this responsibility is what is imperative in a democratic society. So the point is that you should value that you are living in a democracy. You should understand for that reason what is democracy in the first place, not at a superficial level, but I'm sure our friend Chaitanya will be able to guide you all in this today. Second thing is be responsible. As young students and as an administrator of a college, I have noticed that students tend to argue that it is my right. It is my right to express my speech. It is my right to say whatever I feel like. Okay. But always remember, with this freedom of speech and expression, there are certain restrictions. And above all, more than the restrictions, you must consider your responsibility as a citizen of the democratic country that you should be abiding by. So that is the important aspect of democracy I would like to stress today. So please be aware of the freedom that you have and please value the democracy that you are living in. On that note, I would also like to congratulate our speaker for today, Chaitanya Prabhu. I think he has made our college extremely proud. He has been working so much in this field of creating awareness, because you all must be aware, voting ratio has always been so dull and poor. So Chaitanya has been very active in this field, and as Vanessa just told you, he has been very active in the assembly elections that happened last year, last time. And I wish you all my best wishes, Chaitanya. I hope you go ahead and make a great name for yourself as well as for Advocate Barasaheb Apte College of Law. I thank you all for giving me a patient hearing. Let us now proceed with the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would request the audience to keep their mics on mute. Also, if any questions, kindly put up them in the chat box. All the questions will be addressed at the end of this session. Also, now I would like to request Mr. Chaitanya Prabhu to proceed with this session. Over to you, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, ma'am, for those kind words. I'm highly grateful. In fact, I have learned a lot in these years being part of this institution. If you have ever seen the way I speak and what I say, the word imperative is something that I always use in my speeches, and I have picked that up from you. So thank you for that. And thank you for this platform, and thank you to this college for always being supportive, because that is the fundamental block of every social entrepreneur trying to do something. Now let me address the issue of today, democracy. The very word democracy comes from Greece, as we know. Demokratia, as we say it, ruled by the people. But somewhere we've forgotten that. 15th September is Day of Democracy. India is the world's largest democracy. And sadly, this day is not celebrated. This day needs to be celebrated as much as any other day, like probably World Earth Day or National Voters Day, because I feel democracy is the fundamental block of our freedom in our country, and it needs to be expressed in the best way possible. If you even compare Day of Democracy in India as per what happens in the United States of America, you will see the disparity. And this is the problem of our country, and this needs to change. Now, when we talk about democracy, we have freedom. Freedom comes with rights, as ma'am rightly stated, but it also comes with the right to vote, which is something that we need to exercise. The right to vote is not only the fundamental block, but I would say the first block or pillar of our democracy, because it gives you the right to choose the perfect leader in the current society. And I truly believe, that that is something that we need in today's society. So now, how do we get to the conclusion of voting, and how do we reach there? Let me give you all some statistics of our country right now, which you will then probably have an overview of what we are going through. So we have 900 million voters, out of which 450 are young. 65% of Maharashtra's population is young. But sadly, this population is not interested in the concept of voting or going out to vote. This is where the problem starts. We are in a democracy. We have the freedom to choose. We have the freedom to cry about problems in our society. But we don't want to act on it. We don't want to go out and vote. That is where the problem lies in our democracy. It starts with voting and ends with voting. So a concept that needs to be understood is that I always say that we need educated voters in our society. It's not going to be enough that you just have the right to vote as a citizen of this country. You go and elect some leader. It's very important to be educated in this field. It's very important to understand. Now, education has not got to do with where you study from, what you study, what you have done in the past. It's got to do with what you understand about your geopolitical situation. It's got to do with how you respect your leaders, what you understand. Because it's a two-way street. You have to respect your leaders. They will respect you. You have to hold them accountable. They will do the work for you. Now, since I've mentioned accountable, let me talk on accountability. The youth of Maharashtra, the youth of India, I would say, is sadly not educated in terms of being a voter. They don't realize the importance of the right given to them. And second, they don't realize how they can hold people accountable, which is again a great issue in India. Now, what is accountability? Accountability is basic structure. If you have a problem, you need to approach the concerned person. If you don't, your problem will not be solved. Let me give you an example. Now, there is a pothole on your road. If you see this pothole, the first reaction of every young individual in today's time is, this is the government's problem. This is a pothole. This is how our roads are, or this is India. There are potholes everywhere around the world. If you go to New York, you will find potholes there. If you go to Brazil, you will find potholes there. It is a natural act that happens because the cars go on the road, and this is something that happens. But problem being, the youth of our country will see this problem and not seem to solve it. Now, even if they are accountable, look at how they are accountable. They will tweet to Narendra Modi, they will tweet to Rahul Gandhi, they will tweet to everybody else except the corporator. So the question is, when you have a problem, which is your own road, you need to address it to the councillor. If you don't address it to the councillor, your problem is not going to be solved, because it's not going to be the Prime Minister's duty to do it. We as lawyers need to be, or law students, I would say, need to be very, very aware, because this is something that we learn throughout. jurisdiction and these terminologies that we go through all these years are something that we need to apply. So when there is some sort of problem in your constituency, in your assembly, in your ward, you need to know who to hold accountable for. And trust me, if you hold the correct people accountable for the task, your work will be done. Now let me give you a framework. We have assemblies, we have municipal wards, we have assemblies, and then we have constituencies. So every constituency has their own MLAs, MPs, depending on the structure, and our corporators are responsible for the basic framework of our civic rights. So this framework needs to be understood, and what needs to be understood is that when you go out to vote for a Lok Sabha elections, what are the duties and responsibilities of that particular MLA? It's very important for us to understand when we go and vote for our corporators, what are their responsibilities? As MPs, what are their responsibilities? Because only if we understand their responsibilities, can we vote for the correct people? And this framework needs to be understood. And till this is understood, I believe registering voters, talking about voting rights is pointless, because still you can reason, analyze, interpret, and then vote in an election. An election will prove not effective. Now coming to the topic of democracy again. Democracy has flaws. In every country, democracy differs. If you would see democracy in India, it is very different that of what is there in the States. It is very different from that what is there in Australia, and it differs. For that matter, even Russia has gone to say that they are a democracy. So democracy has its flaws. Democracy has evolved. And nobody can live in a perfect democracy. Democracy is like a society. It's like a family. Everybody has problems. To solve the problem, the government can't cater to everybody's needs, but it tries. All we as young people need to do is take part in the role. What we as young people need to do is support them. Because only if we come together can we create an impact. This is not something that I am advocating. This is something that Socrates and Plato themselves said. Since you highlighted facts about Athens and you highlighted facts about Greece, let me give you an illustration about Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. These were the biggest political thinkers that we had back then, and even now when we come to talk about democracy. And no interview, no conversation can go without talking about Socrates and his love or hate relation with democracy. Now, Athens, as you know, was the first place where this whole concept of democracy originated, and they were the pioneers behind this. They themselves have told us that there will be flaws. So, Socrates has said in so much words, he's gone on to say in the dialogues with Plato that he hates democracy, because he says that democracy can turn into a demagoguery, which is what every one of us should fear. If we as young people right now don't strengthen our democracy, we will become something like a demagoguery. Now, what is demagoguery? Demagoguery means having elected representatives that don't care about you, your society, but care about themselves. And how does this problem happen? This problem happens when people like us don't read, analyze, and then just vote for any leader. So there is deep message rooted in democracy, which not students like me are trying to make up to try and get young people together, which is something that is preceded. It is something that the philosophers have said, and all I'm trying to do is put that together and put it forward to you. Socrates goes on to give an amazing example. He says, he gives us two options. He says, here is a sweet shop owner and here is a doctor. These two are doing their own work in society. Who would you prefer to probably be in charge? Now, there are two schools of thought. Socrates says, when you look at the doctor, you see him as doing very things which are probably not kind. He's playing with blood, he's opening someone's body, he's doing things that are probably not pleasing to the eye. So when you would probably go to a KEM hospital or a Cooper hospital, you would not want to stay there because you'd see the doctor doing different things. Only if you're educated will you understand what the doctor is doing, which is, for me, he's trying to help humanity, he's trying to help us. Now the idea is, what Socrates tries to say in a whole is, we've forgotten that ideology. We've forgotten what the doctor is supposed to do. Now that's one school of thought. Second school of thought, what Socrates clearly states and says is, there is a sweet shop owner. He's sitting there distributing sweets for free. Everybody is coming, taking sweets and going. Nobody is telling you about what repercussions is going to happen if you don't brush, if you keep having sweet every day, what's going to happen to you in the health issues. Nobody is saying that. But what seems pleasing to us and to everybody is this sweet shop owner, because he is doing something that probably pleases everybody. So Socrates is trying to tell us that here is one person who sells sweet, which is pleasing to some people. Here is one doctor who's actually doing an impact. But because the people, because the consumer, because the people around don't know, I don't understand this balance, they're making the very mistake of electing the sweet shop owner. So what he tried to say in Genesis is that we've elected more sweet shop owners than doctors in our society, and this has become a problem. So the consensus and the whole idea of democracy is that we should be educated, we should hold the correct people accountable. It should not matter. You could support any political ideology, any political party, but when it comes to voting, it is not political. It is an act given to you as a civic right by your country because you are a citizen of this country. So support that right irrespective. Don't force people to vote for whoever you think is important, but talk about it. Because I think that is the fundamental block, and I think that is very, very important. Now, since I've given you an overview as to what is an uneducated voter and an educated voter, giving you all examples of what has happened in 5 BC, let me give you all some sort of understanding as to how we could be educated. It's very, very simple to be educated voters in today's time. Please get your information from valid sources. That's the pillar block. Media is the fourth pillar of our democracy. And sadly, it is failing us. It is failing us in today's time, not because of what they are showing in news channels currently. It's because what news is spreading. People like me should not be advocating right to vote. It is something that the media should be offering. News, sadly, the media is giving us news of what news excites us, and they decide what is there, what is news in the first 24 hours. So they think whatever happened in the last 24 hours is news, and they will give you that information. They will not talk about education. They will not talk about voter registration because that is not relevant according to them. But on the contrary, people like me believe that I feel voting and registration should be an act that is done throughout the year, irrespective of an election being there or no, because I truly believe it is a right given to us for free and we should value it. India has been forward on that ground. I don't know if we've read a little bit about the adult franchise movement, but we would realize that US did not grant rights to women for 200 years. India has been forward on that ground. It has granted rights to vote for every single individual. So we should use this to our potential. But it is very important, or I would say imperative, for us to be educated voters. Without that, we are not going to build a society which is stronger. Without that, we are not going to build a society which is good enough to elect good leaders. Because there are good leaders. All we have to do is look, find them and elect them. Now, let me give you some statistics of how the best schools or universities around the world work in trying to get voter engagement high. It is a proven fact by universities like Harvard, Oxford, and MIT that India as a country has so many young people in every constituency, assembly, and ward that if young people come together, we can decide who comes into power. This is not any sort of assumption based on what political parties say. This is proper research. Anybody can Google, anybody can find out. This is information that is easily accessible. And it is a proven fact that we as young people, if we decide that this is a candidate that we want to vote, we can come together, we can vote that candidate and make sure that he comes into power. So that is the power that we have. So someone died and fought for the vote that you have today. Don't give it up easy. Fight for it. So there was this thing, vote like your life depends on it, or vote like your education depends on it. That if you vote for that one day, the way that it should matter to you, it is going to create an impact in society. So I truly believe and truly urge every single individual that we should always analyze, interpret, and then vote in an election, because only then can we strengthen our democracy. Why did I focus so much on talking about voting and voting rights? Not only because that is something that I'm advocating since 2018, but because that is the fundamental block. We could always whine and cry for what is happening in our country. But if we as young people don't come out and oppose it, there is going to be no problem. And sadly, in Mumbai, I have had the privilege of registering voters in Delhi, in Bangalore, in Pune, and in Bombay. And Bombay is the worst place. People are not politically interested, they are not socially aware, and they're not willing to come out. I was shocked that even we had some people come out for the RA movement. I was shocked that we had some people come for the coastal road movement. If all these people came out to vote during an election, these problems wouldn't rise, because we as young people need to oppose, irrespective of which government comes into power, whether you support them ideologically or no. If they are doing something against what our constitution stands for, moreover, we as law students should oppose it. Shouldn't matter to us what party our ideologies lie to, but if they are doing something that is wrong according to you, the right of opposing should come from you. Because this small act of opposing something, this small act of coming out and saying I am against it, is the beginning. The beginning of a social movement, or beginning of being social in today's time, starts with holding people accountable, starts with speaking about rights, and starts with you. All of us can create some impact in our own sphere. We just don't realize. Just to give you all some sort of understanding as to what I do. Thank you for, I believe Apeksha gave a beautiful introduction. Thank you for that. So let me go on to give you an analysis of what we are trying to achieve. So Mark Your Presence essentially is a non-profit, non-political organization which works with the support of the election commission bodies of Maharashtra and Delhi to essentially register and educate young voters. Exactly what I've been advocating and talking to you for a while, that is what I do in every school and college, to convince you that we have the power and we can go out to vote, irrespective of what our ideology says. And all we have to do as young people is ask one question to your friend, is do you have a voter's ID? This question will take you a long way. If you've not spoken to your friend, we'll create a conversation. If you are still speaking to him, you will empower him, but you will create a presence. Now, as a representative of Mark Your Presence, I've always made sure that everybody in my team, everybody in my circle is always registered. But I cannot do this alone. I need every single one of you all to play your own part, to register more voters, to take part in this. Because this is something that only we as collectively can create a change. We cannot, I have said this several times already, we cannot do things alone. We need a group, we need a team to do things together. And this impact needs to come. After this conversation and after this seminar, please don't go back and be like, okay, now it's done. Now we've got our e-certificates, so we are done. No, this is the beginning. We need to start it. You need not get out on the street, but start with getting on platforms like Twitter. Start playing a pivotal role. Do not be scared to stand for a right. That does not mean you oppose any government, any party for any rhyme or reason, or probably put yourself into some jibber jabber with people on the internet. But at least that's a start. If you think there is something wrong, then please stand for a right. Please stand, because that is the first thing. And start voting for the smallest thing. It could be small things on your dining table. It could be small things with your friend, but start small so that you can create a presence for a better tomorrow. And I feel the youth of today has the strength to create whatever we can. And I'll give you a little insight on what we have done, so probably inspire you to start something of your own. So essentially, we have some key members from our college itself that play a pivotal role in Mark Your Presence. To name a few, I would say Om Kini, Devyashi Shambar. These two people have played a pivotal role. Riya Prakash, and all they have done as supportive friends is speak to me on topics, talk to me, engage in a conversation. Shreyas also, who's doing a phenomenal job with his plantation, also happens to be playing a pivotal role. All it starts with a conversation with your friends, because just like the media is the fourth pillar of our democracy, our friends are the pillar of our social enterprise. Till we have our support of our friends, of our teachers, there is going to be no, because we are not a political platform, we do this in a apolitical level, so we need support of our friends, we need people to play a part in this role so that we can create a stronger tomorrow, a stronger democracy. Now, whenever you think of any movement, whenever you think of starting something of your own, please go ahead and do it. Don't think about the repercussions, what are going to happen. If it fails, it fails. But please go ahead. Because we as young people, whatever we do, we can create an impact. It doesn't matter whatever our field is, whether it's environmental, whether it's law, whether it is literature. If we as young people come together, we can create change. And I truly believe. And I am an example of that. I'm just like any one of y'all, a law student from this very college, trying to create an impact, worked hard for 2 years and I was successful. If I could do it, any one of y'all could do it. So to summarize, I would say that please build a stronger democracy. Please start somewhere. And I would say you could start with voting, because I think that is the primary aspect. We as an organization are trying to connect everything to voting, because sadly voting is not cool in today's time. Going to movies and talking about Bollywood actors and actresses is become cool, but talking about the very democratic right, imagine how cool this right is. Just think about it. Just go back in time and think that you as an individual, without holding any position, can go to the polling booth and together decide who comes into power. The person that is going to be elected because of you for 5 years of his life is going to be thankful for your commitment on that one day. That is the power that you have. So next time he comes to ask for your votes, please tell him whatever you have to, because he's liable to make sure. That power, I repeat, that power is something we need to know. I'll repeat that it is not about the next election. It is about the next generation. If we as the younger generation don't care about this right, because it's free, because it's in India, this very, very concept which is known to all of us, we don't want to get into this. इसमें politics है, हमको नहीं जाना है. This phrase, I'm sure every single person has heard, and this needs to stop. We need to embrace politics. Now, I don't know if the teachers would agree, but every single person would have faced this problem. Whether it's your peer group, whether it's your school, whether it is your college, whether it's your job, whether it's a political party, an institution, a student-run organization, or even the PTA, there is politics. Every single place there is politics. So we as young people are being ignorant. नहीं, इसमें politics है. I don't want to go. याच्यामध्ये खूपच politics है. मला नको. That नको concept needs to change, I believe, because we need to embrace it. It's time we be like, okay, there is politics. Come, let's be part of it. Let's come together. So what if there are people that are going to go against you? We need to stop being so diplomatic, and we need to stop being so apolitical. All of us have views. We should keep it to ourselves. We don't need to express it, but we shouldn't say we are apolitical. Today, I also don't say I'm apolitical, because I have my own opinions, but sadly, I cannot express them at large. I cannot oppose a particular party in general, because that will not serve the cause of my organization, because I would register any person, irrespective of his Congress, BJP, AAP, Samajwadi Party, independent. It shouldn't matter to me, because I'm trying to build a society with educated voters. So I don't happen to have the privilege to discuss certain things, but I believe you as young people have. So we should come together and always start something good, always start something new, because I think the conversation should start with you, and you have the power. So I would conclude by, have I spoken for the time that was needed, or do I have some more time? Could somebody tell me, am I audible? Okay, I cannot.
Yes, you're audible.
Oh, wonderful, you're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can speak if you want.
How much time did I speak for? So then I would know.
You can finish by 2:45.
37.
2:45 you can finish.
Yeah.
You guys weren't audible. So I have 10 minutes more.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So essentially, I would go on to just give you all a spec about Mark Your Presence, since this is a project very close to what my art and this college. So essentially, we as an organization go to every school and college and advocate what I entirely said to you in these 13 odd minutes. And idea is that we get you guys to register. Idea is we get you guys to vote without us coming back again, without us telling you. So throughout the organization, we've always made it an attempt to create guides, to create solutions. So don't bring plans, bring speeches. Don't bring speeches, don't bring plans. That kind of a concept, because UN has gone ahead and said it time and again that these young people need to make sure that we bring out the solutions also. Only pointing out the problems are not going to solve the problems. And trust me, I mean, we have 112 people right now. Imagine the power we have together. Imagine how many social media platforms we have together, how many people we can tag, how many people we can create a presence. That's the ideology that my organization was built on. We as young people come together and create some change, we can really do something. And idea is to inspire one person. Now these 112 people have come. Even if from that one person goes on to vote and register, I will be happy, because that's the idea that I was built on. Of course, I would want every single person to go out and register and vote, but I can't be so ambitious in today's time, seeing Mumbai as a non-politically heated city. If you have a chance ever, please see the position that Delhi is. You would be shocked and probably even a little embarrassed to see how Mumbai is. In Delhi, everybody comes out, irrespective of a party, irrespective of their opinions. They always come out and support the right to vote. Forget the riots, those parts which make the very right to vote a threat. These things or these parts of society maybe cause problems and then deter people to get out to vote. Statements by political parties, riots, people's opinions, these cause a lot of problems. But one can't turn a blind eye to this. I know that factor. A lot of people don't go out to vote for these factors. But it's time we embrace politics. This is part of our circle. This is part of our life. And it's time we take it with our stride and create something new. To probably just give you all an illustration, Mark Your Presence has started a leadership initiative. What we're trying to do is grow this cause, because during this pandemic, we haven't been able to go to any school or college to conduct seminars. So the idea is how we could create good leaders. So what we're doing through this program is we are trying to connect or get young people to be part of the ambassador program so they can promote the right to vote. At the same time, understand what student problems are. Once we collect student problems, once we register and empower young voters, we'll have some sort of information which we could use to probably submit to the government, to tell them that here are problems by younger people. We need to solve this, and they will. If we reach to the correct people, they will solve our problems. All we have to do is start. To just say that a team is very important, people are really important, associations are really important. More importantly, college support is really important. And our college has been extremely supportive towards my cause since the very beginning. So I'm sure if any one of you all start something of your own, principal ma'am, without a doubt will support. Because I clearly remember that when I'd kept my first seminar in college, not only did all the students come out, but we also had some good panel discussions. So ideally, start small, but think big is, I think, what one should do. And today, since it's Day of Democracy, let's not only post stories, let's not only talk about what happened, but let's do a little more. Let's register to vote. I have tried to always connect voting and politics, voting and democracy. So a couple of months ago, I made the first apolitical rap with 4 different people from 4 different slums of Mumbai. It was called Rap for Rights. We got TSM, which is True School Music in Mumbai, to be part of this event. And socials, as you know, Impresario group, where all of us go to probably grab a bite sometimes, to come on board and host this event. And we got 4 different people from 4 different slums to come and to rap in 3 different languages. So it was something that we created. The idea was to connect rap to voting and democracy. And today, the idea is to connect dance to democracy. So what I've done, something that you guys can go on Mark Your Presence and find out, is we're doing something called Dance for Rights, wherein we've taken the same 20 seconds of that rap. We've got young professional dancers to be part of the movement. We've got 102 odd dancers spreading the movement. Every dancer is going to put up this video, tag 5 other people to create a movement. What are we trying to do here? We're trying to make voting cool. What are we trying to do here? We're trying to spread the message that one can express democracy in the way that he wants to or she wants to. All that person has to do is try. So rap was connected, dancing is connected. Ideally, we just need to keep connecting voting and democracy to something so that young people are inspired, so that they join the dots, and so that we can create something. If any of you guys want to be, probably want to express themselves in terms of being part of this democracy and are not vocal, because not everybody likes to speak. So there is an organization called Youth Ki Awaaz, which we've partnered with. It is a youth-led platform. What we are trying to do from Youth Ki Awaaz is every single person, every single law student who wants to probably voice their opinions for or against the media or against anything that is happening or in general about democracy can write an article, can send it to us, and we will make sure that Youth Ki Awaaz publishes it on the very front page, so that people can see what a lawyer's perspective or a law student's perspective is on democracy. Because I truly believe we as law people need to be strong advocates about right to vote, because it's something that we learn. At least with the other people, I can expect them not to know. But we as law students learn about it. We've had teachers and excellent teachers talk about Socrates and Plato and how he wanted 5,005 people in a state, if I'm not wrong. So I think we've had really good political science teachers teaching us really well. We should use that to our potential. And everybody who's probably in the second year, please read more about how democracy is. I think it is something that we need to do as young students. And yeah, thank you so much for having me in this session, and thank you so much for staying put. We've got 115 people. I am truly humbled, and thank you for calling me as a guest. I couldn't be more grateful that my college has called me for this and the NSS is involved. And thank you, Principal Ma'am, for giving me such a wonderful introduction, and thank you for saying that I'll make this college proud. I truly believe, I hope I can, with the support of this college and everybody, do something together and probably register. My aim is to register more than 1 lakh voters before or during the BMC election. So I have 1.5 years. Hence I've launched the ambassador program so that we can get more people to create an impact. And stay tuned today at 5 o'clock with the help of Deveshri and a couple of people from our college. We are launching something called Your Representative, which is going to be a newsletter which caters to the young, for the young, and by the young completely. So it's going to cover every single topic that concerns the younger generation. More importantly, any person from the NSS team or our college that has done anything concrete or wants to do can reach out to us. We not only help them start what they have without expecting anything, and report their story in that newsletter. Idea is to create a platform for everybody who's involved in political science, sociology, art, law, so that we can come together and support each other, because I think that is something that we need in Mumbai. Let's support each other and let's create something good. And please mark your presence in every election and mark your presence in the best way possible. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Chaitanya. It was indeed an informative session. We have a few questions, if you can answer them. So the first question is, what inspired you to start this organization?
Wonderful. Before I answer that question, I think, okay, I'll answer this question and then go on to something that was on my mind. Essentially what happened was, I have been voting since I was 18. And I had that old card, the old card that all of us have. I believe you guys have, and probably your parents have the same card as well. The black and white card, which is laminated, which has no color figures on it. That's the card that I had. Now, I read an article in the paper that there is a new voter ID which has come into place. And I was wondering if I could get it because it was very attractive. It was just like the Aadhaar card. So I said, I need to get this. So I started to find out what the process is, because how I registered is not online. I went to the polling booth, I went to the election office, waited in the line, got it done, came out. I thought that was easy because I didn't know about the very process of what has been explained online. And when I saw this article, I said, let me try and do it myself. Found out that if you already have a voter's ID, you cannot get the new one unless and until you lose the voter ID or there is some sort of problem. So I then started asking a couple of my friends that, what is the process? have you applied for a voter's ID and which voter ID you have? And the answer was, we don't have a voter's ID. I thought, this is one person, let me go to the next. And this was something that kept building up, and I found out that almost all my friends don't have a voter's ID. And all of them come from areas, schools and colleges where these things should be taught, families where these things should be spoken. In fact, forget any family, every family should speak about this, because this is the fundamental block of our democracy. But found out that this information is not accessible, because who will talk on the dining table whether you have a voter's ID? This is something which is extremely, a very different topic to have. So to give you a detailed example, then I started to register my friends. I told them, this is where you go, log on to NVSP, which is the Election Commission's portal, register for a voter's ID. Found out that my friends are not registering, because just like you telling anybody, come be part of something, nobody is going to do it till they want to. I started customizing messages for them, sent it to them, got them to then register. Still, I saw that 50% didn't do it. Then I started doing it for them. And then that movement continued. When they realized I was doing it for them, this is something I did because I love doing it, they started telling me more about it. And then every person started referring. So I started from my school itself. So if you are thinking right now, how did I find these people? I happen to have gone to this school called Jamnabai Nursery School, which is in Juhu. And that school is also very supportive, just like our college. The framework is just like our college. The teachers are just like our college, very supportive, very friendly. So one student at a time. So that's why I always say building democracy, one student at one time, because that's what I started off with. So that time there was no Mark Your Presence. So when you say about what inspired to start Mark Your Presence, there was no Mark Your Presence. There was only me floating WhatsApp messages, just like the message that was floated for this event. Exactly like that, I was floating messages, but more crisp, so that people read it. And slowly, when I registered 500, 600, 700, 800, and then I reached my 1,000 voters. And that's when I went to Mantralaya. I waited outside. I spoke to the Chief Electoral Officer and I said, sir, I've registered these many voters, and I personally feel, sir, I can register 5,000. He said, if you feel you can register 5,000, here's our support. We had a commissioner which was very fierce, very honest, called Ashwini Kumar, who said, from tomorrow you have our support, do whatever you want. We want you to say you're not from a political party or don't support anybody. I said, yes, sir, I'm not. They cross-checked. There it was. I had the support of the Election Commission. And from there onwards, 1,000 became 5,000, 5,000 became 10,000. And now we are almost touching, going to be 15,000 soon. So that was the process. So I wasn't inspired to start Mark Your Presence. I was inspired to register voters, but then people started asking me after I registered about, I think, 500 or 600 odd voters, people asked me that, which organization is doing it, who's doing it. So I had to form something to give it a name, and under that banner. So what started as a small movement to help couple of friends became a movement for me. I hope that gives you an illustration as to what Mark Your Presence is and how I started it. I think I answered way more than asked. Sorry, but I think that would have given a broader, in the larger scheme of things, a better explanation.
Before we proceed to the second question, I would like to request the participants that the feedback form, the link has been shared in the chat box. Kindly fill up the feedback form. So the second question is mine. I would like to ask that most of the people has this mindset, like Ranbir Kapoor said, "Mere ghar pe bijli pani aata hai, to why should I bother?" So how can we change that mindset? Ki mere ghar pe to sab theek hai, then why should I speak for the underprivileged? So how can we change this mindset?
Absolutely. What you pulled up is something that I should have said, but I did not write anything, so I forgot. The problem is these celebrities and these influencers in our society. They are not influencing the audience to do the correct things. Exactly the statement that you had said. He's a very nice individual, and I've had the privilege of meeting him. He's not like what he has said in the comment, but ideally, when they're influencing and they're talking, they somewhere forget there's a disconnect. They do not report things that are very, very important. So we are looking at someone like Ranbir Kapoor for some comment about society where he's doing something in the film industry. This is the disconnect. We need influencers, we need celebrities that start talking about what matters to us more. Now, how we can change Ranbir Kapoor's mindset is something beyond me, because it's very, very difficult for us to influence anybody. And to be honest, everybody comes from their own background, their own privilege. So they have a different perspective lined out for different things. So if you would say how we can change his perspective, I would say close to impossible, because he's speaking according to what his backgrounds are. But how we can change as young people is not follow influencers or celebrities that are not influencing us in the right way. I mean, TikTok and stuff like this is important. I mean, it's entertainment in life to do these 2-3 things that probably get us together. But that does not make us good citizens, does it? It keeps us entertained. But I think the influencers of our society now are deterring to things that are not of high relevance to us or might not help us in the future. Imagine influencers giving you. There's a very, very good influencer called Dhruv Rathi. There's a very, very good influencer called Abhi and New. These influencers are pushing quality content, but see their videos as compared to that of any celebrity. They are pushing such quality content, but yet are you seeing people following them or liking them the way Ranbir Kapoor is liked? No, that's the problem of our society. We are focusing on our influencing to the people that we shouldn't. But of course, entertainment is important. I cannot deter the public by saying that don't follow Ranbir Kapoor. He's a nice person. You should follow him. You should be entertained. But don't seek any comment or advice from some person who's in the entertainment industry, because he's not going to be able to answer your problems or questions. So following the correct people, getting influenced by the correct people is the fundamental first step. And I think we should start with that.
Thank you so much. Now I would request our program officer, Vishal Chindi sir, to address the audience. So over to you.
Thank you, Vanessa. A very good afternoon to all of you.
Is sir audible? Because I happen to not hear sir.
Sir, we can't hear you, sir.
Sir is not audible.
Meanwhile, Vanessa, we have one more question in chat box. Can we please take that from Atiksha Jain, I suppose?
Yes, so Atiksha Jain asks, voting is an essential part of democracy. What if there is no eligible representative to vote for in her personal dilemma? So what is the essence of Nota? Could you please answer, Chaitanya?
So essentially, very, very good question. In fact, something I missed. So it's good we had this question and answer session. Essentially, if you don't think any candidate is good enough, your only option is Nota. Because it is the only way you can represent your vote. Now, to answer Vanessa's problem, I would say that when you get this right, you get it as a citizen of this country, then a supporter of a political ideology. So when you go out to vote, you're accessing that right given to you. So be rest assured, the fact that the reason why you've got this right is going to be going to be accessed. That justice is going to be given. But of course, if you say we don't have good leaders and you don't know who to vote for, that is a real problem. And that problem starts with us, because we as young people have not made it an attempt to go out. So they have understood that, okay, these people are not coming. So we'll make sure our people only middle-aged stand, our middle-aged people only vote, or old people vote, and we'll get our way. The minute we come together and say we are anyways the majority, we are anyways the people that can make sure that any government falls or comes into power, that day they will have to put good. Also, Nota serves as a perfect example of making sure that a political party or a person understands that he is not liked in the area. It sets a correct precedent. If I could give an example, in Latur, we had the former chief minister's son contest, if I'm not wrong. And that area was the highest Nota ever recorded in not only the state of Maharashtra, but overall India. So what might say about that instance? So it is shown us that in that area he is not liked as much, although he won, but it serves as a good precedent for us. It serves as a good example or statistics for all of us to understand that, you know what, if we go out and show our vote in arrogance also, the people will know, the public will know that 40,000 people or 20,000 people didn't want him to contest. So party then will take calls accordingly for next elections, right? So that's my answer for Vanessa. But to build good leaders, we need good leaders. We need people like you in the government. We need young people like everybody in the government who are politically active to create a plan. So if we want to start the change, we need to get into it. First, start by registering.
Thank you so much. I would now like to request our program officer, Vishal Shinde sir, to address the audience. Sir, over to you.
Is sir there?
Can I ask a question meanwhile?
Sure.
Don't you think the low turning up of voters in Bombay is because of this issue of no proper leadership?
No, the history and the love affair between Mumbai and his voter turnouts is 20, 30 years old. It's not new. Yes, it's become worse every year. That no doubt about it. I cannot deny that. But question is, people don't know, right? People don't know. Forget it. People decide who they're going to vote for in the last half an hour. How can you decide who you're going to vote for, who's going to be in charge of your whole area for the next 5 years or 3 years, depending on whatever, without knowing? People don't know. The information is not accessible. As I said earlier, voting is not cool. The day it becomes like an activity, a concert, a place to go to, people will start going. And it's, as I said earlier, Mumbai is not politically heated. The day it becomes politically heated and the day we get Mumbai University Students' Union back, you see how things will change. Now, when it comes to why there's a voter turnout, it is because people by and large are not interested. Of course, now the leadership concept that you reiterated and you spoke about would only cater to people like you and me who understand what these leaders are, who understand what ideologies is, and then go out to vote. So we are the selected few. So to answer your question, you are 1% of that population that thinks like that. The rest are not bothered. So what we are trying to do is get the bothered people interested. But agreed with you, today there's one leadership, tomorrow there's other political. So like I said earlier, right? Political parties fighting, riots happening, discussions on media, leaders who are not educated, corruption. These are 5 factors that deter young people. But it should deter you not to vote for the political party or person. Should not deter you to sit at home, because wheelchair activism is not going to get us anywhere, I feel. So if you want to go and express yourself, the only way is going out and voting and then doing nota, I feel, if you are against things that are happening.
Do we have any more questions, participants, audience?
Hello, I have one.
Yes, Apeksha.
Chaitanya, can you shed some light on the hierarchy of democratic system, as we have non-law students also, so it would be very informative. Can you please?
Yeah. So essentially, the basic framework of, as I earlier stated, of Mumbai needs to be understood. Now, when you talk about hierarchy as gender, one needs to understand the roles of our corporators, councillors. So who are our corporators, councillors? Who are our MLAs, MPs? Who are our MLAs and who are our MPs? These 3 are the most important factors. Now, when you talk about who to hold, who accountable for is another thing. We need to understand Mumbai's constituencies. In constituencies, there are assemblies. In assemblies, there are wards. Now, let me give you an example of Mumbai. Mumbai, of course, Mumbai as a city. Then you go Mumbai South. What is Mumbai South? All the way from Dadar going on to Kolaba. that is considered as Mumbai South. Now in Mumbai South, there is Worli. Now what is Mumbai South? Mumbai South is a constituency. Who's the head of that? An MP. Now let's go deeper inside. What is an assembly? An assembly is an area which is Worli. So now you have Mumbai South. Mumbai South goes narrowed down, becomes Worli. What is Worli? Worli is an assembly. Who is the representative of an assembly? An MLA. Who is an MLA? A member of legislative assembly. Now we need to understand what his duties are. Then you go inside Worli and then you go into wards. What are wards? Assemblies are divided into 4 wards, 3 wards depending. We have 227 wards in Mumbai. Very important to understand. About 38 assemblies, very important to understand. So this framework, 37 assemblies, this framework needs to be understood, because when you talk about wards and these segregation into 4 parts, every ward has a different representative known as a councillor. So technically right now, if you have a pothole in your area, all you have to do is reach out to that councillor and say that there is a pothole, I stay on Pochkanwala Road, please solve it. And he will solve it. If you call the MLA, who's the MLA of Worli? Aditya Thackeray. Now if you call Aditya Thackeray and tell him about your pothole and then tweet about Aditya Thackeray doesn't do my work, how is it going to solve the problem? Or you call Arvind Sawant and say, Maza road barobar nahi hai, zara kara kaitari. How is his area? So it's very important for us to understand. The basic framework is very easily available. Now, what are their duties and roles will take very long to explain, but essentially MP is someone who voices one's opinions in the parliament. He's got something called the MP Lad Fund, where he gets certain amounts to spend. Now the cooperator is the person that has to do all the work. So all the pressure from the MP, the MLA goes to the cooperator. The cooperators are savior in basic terms. If I were to put it, a cooperator is someone who will do your work, our work, because he's responsible for everything that happens. And he plays a pivotal role in society. So if I would say somebody is a corona warrior or a society warrior in terms of having a bureaucratic position or a position of high repute, it's the councillor, because he is solely responsible for half the activities that happen. So basic framework is very important, and I think that is something that needs to be understood. This is what I generally explain in layman's term, because nobody wants to understand their 21 roles, 30 roles, and how every assembly is divided, and how this demarcation happens, and how this demarcation changes every year. So every so many years, the demarcation also changes. There was a constituency years ago called Opera House in Mumbai. Opera House constituency has become now part of Malabar Hill constituency as an assembly itself. So it comes, they managed it in Kolaba and Churchgate, and they put it together. So idea is how a constituency and an assembly is framed is obviously given in the People's Representation Act. We sadly don't have that bare act as part of our syllabus. But ideally, what needs to be understood is how many people, just like how Plato said in those days, every state should have so many people. Similar way, assemblies and constituencies are decided. How many ever people stay in that area, according to that they increase the mark, decrease the mark, and form a constituency. I think professors would be happy to explain that part in schools, because they would understand this in a deeper perspective. My knowledge is limited to that of what I read in terms of the People's Representation Act, the Constitution, and two, three other things related to the election. On which
am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible. We have been
Yes,
waiting.
sir.
I've been answering questions just so in wait of your.
Thank
Can I
you for
ask
that.
a last
Thank you for
question?
that.
Yes, please, you can ask, but I have no problem.
May I, Vanessa?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
We
so
can.
Chaitanya, what are your views on the current political scenario in our country, where we see only a horrible war, I must say, between the opposition leaders and the ruling government, and see no actual work happening. Also, where a lot of religious politics taking place, which is kind of drowning the aim of democracy.
Atiksha, let me, sorry to interrupt. We are not discuss the thing you are asking for here in the meeting.
We are not supposed
Okay,
to
sir.
discuss
Okay.
religious aspects and current politics in the country. We are not allowed to discuss all those things.
Sorry, sir.
You can have a private discussion regarding that issue.
I would say it's very difficult to please everybody in this democracy. That's how I would say this. We are 900 million voters, so there are so many. That's how I would say it. But we can have a discussion in some other forum. Yes, sir.
Okay. May I proceed, Vanessa?
Yes, sir. Please address the audience.
Yes. Very good afternoon to all of you. Sorry for the disconnection. It's raining very heavy in the Aurangabad. That is why I faced some disconnection. First of all, what I was saying is I appreciate those who are wearing NSS t-shirts. I appreciate the discipline that they have maintained in the meeting. And for those new volunteers, they don't have new t-shirts. So once the college starts up again, we'll have NSS t-shirts for them as well. But I appreciate the discipline of everyone in the meeting, first of all. My job is left to cover the issues which are not covered in the discussion. Okay, that is why I'm in the end of the meeting always. So Apeksha has briefed us all on the occasion, today's occasion, that is the World Democracy Day, which has been celebrated, which has been observed by the United Nations. And also Chaitanya has put some light on the political aspect. Yeah, please unmute yourself. So talking about democracy, okay, the crux of today's occasion is democracy. So democracy itself is a very wide and heavy concept. First of all, it is very difficult to discuss entire democracy in 1 hour. Okay, and for me, I have hardly 10 minutes to discuss all these things. So it's a very difficult task. But still, I will brief it down. So there are two things you have to understand first of all. The first thing is democracy is a form of government, and democracy is a form of society as well. There are two aspects of this concept that you have to understand. Lecture, just 10 minutes, I'll try to brief you. The democracy is a form of government. There are multiple forms of governments in the world. We all know there are dictatorships in the present world that we see. In North Korea, we find a dictatorship. There is a government which is a dictator government. So it is a form of government. There are certain religious rules also. If you look into the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, you find there is a religious rule. In the 16th and 17th century also, the Pope used to govern the society, and that was considered as a religious rule. And another form of government, that is democracy. So democracy, first of all, is a form of the government. Okay. The second aspect of democracy is democracy as a form of the society. So how do I identify whether a society is a democratic society or not? So there are certain principles. That is equality, equal rights to all the citizens, protection to human rights of all the citizens, the equality of opportunity, and equal distribution of wealth of the society. So these are the principles. If you find these principles in a particular section of the society, you can consider it to be a democratic society. Okay. So democracy as a form of government and democracy as a society, there are two different things. But always remember, these two things need not be present at the same time. So there could be a political democracy without a social democracy. Dr. Ambedkar, at the time of submission, at the time of adoption of Constitution of India in the year of 1950, in his speech, you may refer his speech, he said that what we have today is a political democracy and what we need is a social democracy. Okay, so you may further search upon these two concepts. Okay, we don't have that much time to discuss everything. I hope I'm audible and visible properly.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So why I say that there is a there are two forms of democracy. One is democracy, democratic government, and democratic society. I'll give you an example of United States. In United States, we all know it is the oldest form of democracy, and India is the largest form of democracy in the world. That is why no discussion related to democracy in the present world can be concluded without discussing US and Indian form of democracy. In United States, they implemented the democracy long back. But we all know the Negroes didn't have a right to vote. The Negroes got the right to vote later on. Okay, so that you can say earlier it was a democratic form of government only. It was a political democracy. But when the United States gave rights to their black citizens to vote, so they transformed themselves into a socialist democracy. Okay. That is why these two different things are different in nature. Again, coming to the democracy and United Nations, we all know that today's day, that is 15th of September, is decided to be observed as World Democracy Day. So this has been decided by the United Nations. So democracy, you may ask a question that democracy or a form of government is a matter of concern for a particular country. Then how come the United Nations is putting its effort in maintaining and preserving and also protecting the democracies in the world? Yes, United Nations does take steps to protect the democracies in the world. The United Nations is committed to protect the principles of democracy, that is protection to human rights, equal opportunity to all the citizens, equality of opportunity and wealth distribution to all the citizens in the world. So these are the principles to which the United Nations is committed to, and that is why the United Nations observes this day as a World Democracy Day. Why we have organized this event is also to serve one of the purpose of United Nations to observe the democracy. The United Nations in its organization, if you go to the website of United Nations and World Democracy Day, you will find that one of the objective of this particular day is to conduct discussions on democracy. So by organizing this event today through NSS, we are actually conducting a discussion on the democracy. Chaitanya has pointed out a very fundamental element of political form of democracy, political democracy. What is that? The political democracy, all the rights and all the control of the government is in the hands of people. It is the people who elect the government. It is the people who change the government. And for that purpose, what is required? The exercise of right to vote is required. Okay, so that is what Chaitanya's address was focused upon. Okay. Now, the next point, why NSS is concerned with the democracy. Okay. As a NSS, we all know that we are supposed to address the problems of the society. We are all supposed to address the problems of the society. NSS is committed to address the problems of the society. And as I said, that socialist democracy is also a concept. We being a member of society, we being a section of the society, we are bound to preserve the principles of democracy at our level, in our jurisdiction. Okay. And there are certain formalities also of the university to observe this particular day. The last thing I would like to address Vanessa's question that Ranbir Kapoor or something, when he is getting all the electricity and water, then why should he be bothered with the others? Okay, that was a very good question, Vanessa, actually, and it is one of the fundamental, it relates to the fundamental principles of democracy. I would like to quote Martin Luther King the Jr. What he said, injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere. So Ranveer Singh might be getting his electricity and water properly, but he cannot forget that he is a part of some society. He is not living individually. He is a member of some society. And if there is some injustice to other members of the society, it will create some instability, some harm to the peace in the society, which is going to affect Ranveer Singh also at some moment of time. That is why the Martin Luther King the Jr. said, injustice anywhere is threat to justice everywhere. Okay, I think that is the correct answer to your question. That's all for today. Over to you, Vanessa.
Thank you, sir. Now, on behalf of the NSS unit of Advocate Barasaheb Apte College of Law, I would like to express our sincere thanks to Mr. Chaitanya Prabhu for sharing with us his knowledge, his valuable time, and his valuable insights. It was indeed an interesting, amazing, and a very informative session. Thank you so much, Chaitanya. And last but not the least, I would also like to thank our principal, ma'am, for her constant support and guidance. Ma'am has always motivated us and kept us going. We will always be grateful for your support, ma'am. Thank you so much. And all the participants, thank you for attending this. Kindly please fill the feedback form and avail your certificates. Thank you.
Now, with sir's permission, I'd like to request Atreya to end this meeting.
Yes. We'll conclude the meeting. With
Should
national
we
anthem.
conclude the meeting with the national anthem?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे